SRM Institute of Science and Technology, Engineering, Medical and Health Sciences, Management, Dental, Science and Humanities, Law, Agriculture Sciences, Hotel Management. Admissions open.
Hello and welcome to today's webinar. SRM and the Hindu Education Plus present the impact of COVID and psychological situations. So we're happy to welcome you to yet another seminar that the Hindu has tied up in partnership with SRM. And I think this is a very key issue today, one that begs attention of several people, of experts, of even the common man. It's July 11 and we have lived over half the year waiting for this epidemic to end. And it shows no signs of ending yet. We have long days ahead of us where we try to battle this epidemic. It's not going away today or tomorrow. It's here for a few months for sure, at any rate. And while we are preparing ourselves, to prevent transmission by using soaps and washing our hands and masks and keeping distance between us and other people, the question that we need to ask is, are we preparing ourselves, our minds to handle this epidemic? Are we doing enough for our mental health? While existing psychological and psychiatric problems have been exacerbated thanks to COVID-19 and the lockdowns, a rash of new cases, even amongst youngsters, of anxiety and depression are really worrisome. There is a lot of, besides anxiety, there's a lot of sleeplessness as well that doctors are reporting. Today, we have with us a panel of very eminent speakers, experts in their own field, who will talk to us about the psychological impact that COVID has had on the public. And they will also give us a few tips to handle this in whatever way we can do it best. Our first speaker for the day is Professor Lieutenant Colonel Arunachalam Ravikumar. Dr. Ravikumar is the Pro Vice Chancellor, Medical and Health Sciences, SRM Institute of Science and Technology. He was formerly Director, Head of Clinical Services, ENT, Dean, Education of 12 faculties, Sri Ramchandra Institute of Higher Education and Research, Chennai, Member, Academic Council, University Development Council, and he has had several awards and has held several positions throughout his career. His current areas of focus are cochlear implantation, laryngotracheal stenosis, noise protection devices, medical education, hearing awareness camps in districts of Tamil Nadu for children with hearing impairment. I now invite Dr. Ravi Kumar, without any further ado, to give us a broad overview of the psychological impact of COVID and also narrow down to issues that are really relevant to students. Dr. Ravi Kumar, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ramya, and good afternoon to everybody. And it's been a very nice event to take part in. I'm really thankful to the management as well as OSRM, as also the Hindu for having organized this. I happen to be in an administrative post now, and I thought it will be apt for me to describe the challenges we are facing, both from the students' angle as well as the university side, how we are coping with this. With that in mind, we suggested this topic and it has been taken forward very nicely by the Hindu group. Here we find our campus as it looks. It's a vast campus with a lot of open spaces, a lot of buildings too, but with enough greenery and also a water body inside the campus. It was founded 35 years ago. As far as many people think that it's purely an engineering university, but the medical field also is thriving happily inside this campus. And you see the buildings in the far side here. These are the areas of the medical and health sciences group. We have a hospital, about 1,200 bed hospital. This was started in the year 2005. Subsequently, we have added some more health facilities such as dental, nursing, physiotherapy, occupational therapy, pharmacy, public health. 7 institutions are functioning within the MHS campus of the SRM IST. And you see the list here. And when you leave out the medical and the dental part, because the MBBS, MDMS, as well as the BDS, MDS are all governed by the NEET exam now. In addition to that, we have almost 1,600 students who take up courses in other faculties of the medical and health sciences. I am responsible for the medical and health sciences group consisting of these 7 colleges. And each of them has got a dean and supported by very, very reputed, selected faculty who act with a lot of dedication. As you know, teaching in a university is different from teaching in a school in the way that you're dealing with a different type of student. And that student wants to emerge as a young adult and also emerge as a future useful citizen of this country and contribute in whatever way he can. So the aspirations are much more. And there is always a conflict between what is expected of him and what he should aspire to become. So these sort of issues are already there. That is why adolescent care and adolescent psychology is more difficult than a regular treating a small child or so. So we realize this and we are addressing this already in the university. We have counselors, others to take care of children with these problems. But coming back to the topic today, we have been functioning pretty effectively in a university setup. We're one of the high-ranked universities in the country. The 32nd in the list now. And the medical college also has done well in the national rankings. Dental college will be ranked next year. Apart from the ranking, it's the quality of the education which is imparted here, which is important, which is to be noted. And also you will find that the students coming out of this institution are also placed well when they move out. Setting apart the ones doing the medical and dental education. I just wanted to elaborate on the several opportunities available for students taking up other courses such as nursing, physiotherapy, occupational therapy, pharmacy, and public health. These are probably not so very well known outside because of the lack of, if I can term it as glamour. But how many of the students who are listening to this talk realize that India is probably the country which exports the maximum number of pharmaceutical products in the world? That industry has grown tremendously in the last few decades. Even now, recently, during the COVID pandemic, even the President of the United States had to make a request to our Prime Minister to request him to export hydroxychloroquine from India to America, realizing that the production is here. So on and so forth, so many things are happening. But where we are probably lacking is that we don't have the visibility across the globe. One. Two, we are not performing basic research and coming out with newer molecules. But let me tell you, it's changing. And India is now definitely emerging. And the reason is the youth. The youth of this country who have been now exposed to a wide variety of, if I can call it, knowledge, access to knowledge, access to data, access to books and journals, etc., thanks to the internet. They are an emerging force. And we have the largest number of youth in the world in one country. So they have a lot of aspirations. They have a lot of dreams, and we are there to nurture them. So the SRM is standing by you to make those come true. I took this insert from one of the Hindu EducationPlus recently. How are you reacting to the pandemic? We need to learn, we need to acquire knowledge, experience, skills, ability to compete in the world, achieve competence, which means you need to be a competent professional or an educated person working in an institution. For that, you need good training. Skill training is not just tools and machines, it's also related to how you perform a particular task effortlessly and with perfection. And one needs growth. So students and institutions need to acknowledge the value of living, innovating, which means bringing out newer methods of learning, newer methods of equipping oneself to gain competencies and working together within their own specific context. And also transfer this knowledge across various domains, which means domains could be skill-based, could be knowledge-based, communication skills, etc. So this is very apt in this pandemic. The pandemic hit us like a tsunami. All of us were not prepared for it, but we have to move on. We have to start living, LIWING. So these are the usual things which have been exposed to. In our university also, we would have all these restrictions, or I would call it not restrictions, I would call it your own protection. Protection of the self and of your neighbor, of your friend, of your family member. So it's important that we follow these instructions. It will be for a long time now. As a doctor, I'm telling you, this pandemic is going to take a while. It is not going to leave us soon. But if we are careful, if we are taking the necessary measures, I can assure you it can happen. It has happened in smaller countries, Korea, Japan to a certain extent, New Zealand, smaller countries in Europe. What it requires is self-discipline, and it can be achieved even in a country like India. It will happen, but it will take time. But the one issue which we have to adhere to in university setup is the university is something like it's supposed to be place of not only learning, it's also a social gathering. Peers, your own colleagues, friendships, fights, playgrounds, everything forms the university. So we are forced to ask you to stay. So we are making the arrangements for this also, so that we are making it safe for you to be here. We have provided enough areas for you to clean your hands. And then we want to ensure that this doesn't happen. When it comes to degree time, you should not be stranded without a plane. So the last semester students who are now undergoing this bit of stress, their issues have been addressed and they will be safely undergoing the examination, most of the time online, as well as some practical will be done, and they will move on in life. And I hope they don't have to go through this setup of trying to find a job, because we have to assist them. The placement is pretty strong in SRM. We have a good placement center and they'll help them. But then this is the new normal. Every building in SRM would have this gadget, a thermal sensor, so that we can detect anybody having fever, and immediately we would be taking care of that person. We have a special fever clinic. The hospital is a 1,200-bed hospital with all specialties and ICUs to take care of that person perfectly. We also have plans to train students in our simulation lab. We have an excellent simulation lab in SRM, which is one of the largest in the country. And we have trained a lot of medical and paramedical persons in this. So the allied health sciences will have access to this. It's under the MHS umbrella. So individually one can train. They will also be exposed to training. Of course, this is an old photograph, so you don't find people wearing masks, but they will be put through all this training. So the usual fear is, should I go near a patient? Would I be able to examine the patient and learn from the patient? Which is the traditional method of learning. But to overcome that, we have got plans like this. And this is our simulation lab in action. One more picture of how to perform a cardiac resuscitation, recent one. So you have so many such scenarios which can be addressed. So do not think that you will not get practical training. Practical training will be the important part. The experiential learning is an important part of our curriculum, and we implement it very rigidly, maintaining the social distance that it requires. Coming back to our campus, you find that these various colleges are there. A few words about each of these courses which you are offering during this pandemic also. The medical college itself, apart from MBBS and MD and MS, has got nearly 26 courses. And coming to today's topic, you find there is a course on clinical psychology, both in the bachelor's level as well as in the bachelor's as well as the master's. We have psychiatric social work, clinical psychology, MSc, MPhil, medical physiology. So many different courses are available. I can tell you that I realized the potential of these graduates, and they do very well when they get it. Speech language pathology is another course which is very, very popular. We have diploma courses also in various specialties of the medical college, including hospital administration, clinical research, microbial technology, office management, ophthalmology, blood bank, etc., etc. In the College of Pharmacy, which is one of the top-ranked colleges in the country, it's in addition to the Bachelor of Pharmacy, there is masters. We have masters in various specialties of pharmacy, and then we also have PhD. But for the basic graduate school student, the Bachelor of Pharmacy is an excellent course. I've already told you how the pharma industry has flourished in this country, and there's a lot of occupational opportunities available in this field. And we have regular placements with these various big companies which recruit regularly from our institution. Nursing college has got bachelor's, master's, as well as diploma. Recently added being pediatric nursing, psychiatric nursing. These are all courses which have recently been added. And the new concept we have done, I'll just come to it in a minute. We have the physiotherapy, again, having so many different types of specialization at the postgraduate level. Basic courses for class 12 passed out student is Bachelor of Physiotherapy. Occupational therapy, which is slightly different from physiotherapy, again has a bachelor's degree and so many master's degrees. Public health is the recent addition, and it has got bachelor's and master's program. Most of them stand up with the WHO. So at this point, I don't have it on a slide. I'll just read out one or two of the testimonials given by one of the students of public health. This is a person who passed out. It's called Irene Sambat. He's an ICMR, National Institute of Epidemiology, Chennai. Being a part of the coronavirus response has provided me an opportunity to apply my statistical and epidemiological learning. I owe my thanks to the School of Public Health for the unique academic program that gave me this background and exposure. Similarly, we have people abroad who have also given testimonials. These are student testimonials, it will be available on our website also. So they feel empowered and competent to pursue a good job in a good institution. So my dear students and parents, don't think there is no light at the end of this tunnel. It looks very dark and bleak. But then when you go near the end, there is always light. In a pandemic situation, we are all affected equally. It's a question of who reacts, how he reacts, and how we overcome the problem. Please think positive. Don't panic. Don't be overjoyous also, but at the same time, be careful, protect yourself. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Ramya, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ravi Kumar. That was a wonderful sort of briefing that you gave us to start off this webinar. Our next speaker for the day is someone you've all heard about, and Dr. Lakshmi Vijayakumar has done sterling work in the area of suicide prevention. And you must have heard, if you are from these parts, you would have heard of Sneha, the institution that she founded in order to help people who have suicidal thoughts overcome them. She's also the head Department of Psychiatry, Voluntary Health Services, Adyar, Chennai, and a member of WHO's International Network for Suicide Research and Prevention. She's an honorary associate professor in the University of Melbourne, Australia, and honorary adjunct professor, University of Griffith, Australia. She's been conferred the honorary fellowship of the Royal College of Psychiatrists, UK, for her work on suicide prevention. And she has also been conferred the FRCP. She was awarded the Ringgill Service Award by IASP in June 2015. She's also published widely in peer-reviewed journals and has authored several chapters on her area of expertise, which is suicide prevention and in the context of COVID. Dr. Lakshmi, please.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Ramya, and thanks to SRM and Hindu for inviting me for this webinar. Suicide, actually, if you look at it, is the silent epidemic which is shadowing this pandemic. There have been some preliminary studies. Actually, if you look at the sociological theory, at the early phase of the pandemic, the suicides are a bit low because people feel a sense of cohesion, feel that we are all in this together and we have to fight together. So there is some kind of a cohesion in the society, and suicides comes down. But as the pandemic progresses and as the economic realities of the pandemic unfolds, the suicides increase. We have had suicides which has increased following the Spanish flu, and then after the SARS, during the SARS epidemic, suicide has increased, particularly in the elderly people in Hong Kong. And if we are tracking the suicides now, the preliminary results from countries like Japan and New Zealand actually show a kind of a reduction in suicide in the early phase. But now we have a real-time tracking in the Brisbane, and those shows an increase in suicide. But when we come to India, it is a totally different picture, because right from the beginning, we have seen an increased reporting of suicides. So unfortunately, in India, we are not able to track live the number of suicides or attempts, because the suicide data from India is almost always delayed and almost always an underreporting. So, but I'm sure all of you have read in the newspapers, and we have been tracking the stories in the newspapers. And what we have found is that even in the early phase of COVID, the suicides in India has been increasing. And we are seeing more reporting of suicides. And what is surprising is that the kind of suicides which we see are probably a little different from the suicides which have probably we saw the previous year or something. There seems to be a kind of a demographic shift. Before, we used to see very young women having huge number of suicides, the suicide rates being high. But of late, we are seeing middle-aged men who are probably employed, and then there is suicide, because the economic realities and the issues which they are facing are a huge problem. The other thing which we are seeing is that married women who are now caught up in this lockdown situation, and all of you would have read in the papers that the domestic violence has increased tremendously. And this domestic violence, coupled with the inability to move out or get support, has increased the suicidal attempts of these women. And of course, in our country, we have a very peculiar situation, because all the alcohol vending shops and Tasmacs were closed. So, which forced a lot of people who are used to consuming alcohol on a daily basis to go on a sudden withdrawal. So, this alcohol-related suicide is something which is very, very, would I say, peculiar to India. In the other countries also, lockdown has happened, but they have opened up. It was open for food and groceries, and India food and grocery shops, you can get wine or alcohol. So we don't find much of an alcohol suicides in the rest of the world. But this is very peculiar to India, where the sudden closure of all the alcohol vending outlets have resulted in many people going in for a withdrawal, and in the withdrawal they have tried to die by suicide, or because of the withdrawal they have caused issues at home and family problems have erupted, and people have died by suicide or attempted suicide. So the other thing which I would like to say is the fact that all of us are concentrating on the physical aspects of COVID, but no other condition has impacted the mental health of the population. So we are seeing people who are otherwise had no mental health issues at all, and this COVID has become a catalyst for them to develop anxiety, depression, and the other conditions. And many of them have been doing very well, but suddenly their coping skills have deserted them. And what we find now is the fact that if you think about COVID as such, we can see where the suicides happen. When the suicides happen, most often it happens when the diagnosis is made. The person immediately is thinking, I got COVID, so it is completely fatal. So I'm going to die. So it is lack of total awareness that the case fatality is only 1.7 in our state. But immediately when a patient thinks that they have COVID, they think that they are going to die. So they would rather die themselves before waiting for death to happen to them. That's one part of it. The other thing is that when these people are kept in isolation and they do not have the social, so suddenly diagnosis is made, they are taken, they are put in isolation, they are feeling bad, they are not uncertain about their future, they are uncertain about the family also, where they feel guilty whether they have infected somebody else in the family, is somebody people going to die, so the amount of guilt is also there. Unfortunately, the biggest challenge we are facing now in dealing with people with COVID and the families is the stigma attached to this. I do not know why this has become nobody attaches a stigma if somebody has as an influenza or even SARS or even H1N1, there was not much stigma. But when it came to COVID, the stigma has increased tremendously. And I would say many of the apartment building people have become very, very protective. They don't allow anyone to enter. The old people who are used to having help are not getting help. So a whole lot of, as I said, this simple, single, primitive virus has messed not only with our bodies, but has messed with our minds also. And if you look at the students, if at all there is any tiny, tiny silver lining to this whole uncertain and difficult period, it is the fact that we are actually seeing a dip in student suicides. By now, with the announcement of the exam results, you would have read in the papers many students dying by suicide because they have failed in exams. Every year in India, almost 2,500 young students die because they have failed in exams. But now the student suicide has dropped considerably. This goes to show that we need to really address the educational system. If you are able to save 2,500 students, simply because you remove the pressure of the 1-point exam, then the education system has to go back and see where they are going wrong, look for grading or continuous evaluation and various other things. Because as I said, in the last 3 months, I haven't read one case of student suicide in the newspapers. So which means it is the society, it is our education system, it is us who are pressurizing the students. And this is a lesson which we have to learn from COVID and see how we can make it an engaging atmosphere for an education should be a process of learning and a process of acquiring knowledge and wisdom rather than examination and marks. I think this is a good indicator for that. Now, in terms of how the students are facing, I think Subhashini is going to talk about the psychological stress which the students are facing. But some of the issues which we find is that because of lockdown, I've had one client from a student, an engineering college student, who is a good student, who was a brilliant student, who stood always first, and who was a good tennis player and used to play tennis very well, but she was always a little anxious about the exams. But now during the lockdown, because he's not able to go out and because he's not able to play tennis and he's staying cooped up at home and he does not know what the future holds. He wanted to go abroad and study, and that is curtailed, and you do not know when you have to go. So this whole uncertainty has decompensated him, and he has started developing tensions. And what I would like to say is that for students, think of it as a gap year. Think of it as a year for you to expand your horizon into doing a lot of things which are allied. As Dr. Nachalam said, there are a lot of things which you can do. There are courses which is being offered. Use this as an opportunity. And see, I have been talking to some of the students who come for help during this period. And I tell them, see, this is COVID has given you an opportunity. Instead of thinking what I want to become, I want to become an engineer or a medicine or doctor or anything like that. Don't think of it like that. When you start thinking, how can I contribute to my community? How can I contribute to the world? Then you will find something which you are passionate about and which you will do and you will succeed. So what gives you success is only a passion, and that passion will come when you change your question. Okay, and I tell them there are three ways of leading a life. One is a leisurely life, where you don't do anything, you just happily do whatever you want and be there. The other is a comfortable life, which many of us aim for. We earn so that we have some comfort of this car, this house, or this dress, or this party, or whatever it is. Okay, but if you start leading a meaningful life, then life becomes meaningful. And you can lead a meaningful life when you have a purpose. And when you change the purpose from yourself to the larger picture, to the larger arena of the world, then life will become meaningful. And that's what I usually tell the students to cope with this stress. Have I overshot my time or?
Thank you, Dr. Lakshmi. That was really good. It was insightful. We heard a lot about, the impact of COVID on suicides, and also perhaps, a strange silver lining that we hadn't thought about, that the number of suicides among students has come down. Let's hope it will stay that way. Our next speaker for today is Professor M. Tirunavukarasu. He hails from Tanjavur. He hails from a small village in Tamil Nadu, and he completed his MBBS from Tanjavur Medical College, postgraduate training from Madras Medical College, Chennai, and he finished his DPM in 79 and MD Psychiatry in 81 with postdoctoral training at the Jewish Hospital attached to Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri, 1988. At that time, he had exposure in the recent advances in the management of alcoholism and chemical dependency. After post-graduation, he worked at Madras Medical College, Chennai in the Department of Psychiatry, serving both in the mental hospital setup as well as the general hospital. During that time, he participated in a lot of research activities, including drug trials, and moved on to Stanley Medical College as the head and professor of psychiatry. He served 2 terms as a member of the Senate in the Tamil Nadu Dr. MGR Medical Varsity, and 1 member as member governing council in the same university. He has served as examiner and inspector in the discipline of psychiatry in several institutions in India, edited, published, and authored 4 books for students of psychiatry, and a number of books in the local language, which is Tamil, for the general population. Having attended several international national conferences and participated and presented papers at them, one significant factor is that his services during tsunami relief were very much appreciated by the World Health Organization. Given his expertise in this area, we thought that Dr. Tirunavukarasu could speak to us on PTSD and the psychological interventions during times of COVID. Dr. Tirunavkarsu, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Ramya, for your nice introduction. I thank the SRM as well as Hindu group for giving me this opportunity to be with people in this lockdown period. See, here in this particular situation, few words are very important to understand. See, for example, one word is disaster. Disaster means beyond the human resources, it has come. Any amount of your effort, you cannot overcome this attack or impact. So it becomes a collective effort, multidisciplinary approach to deal with all those things. In addition to that, we have an inbuilt mechanism of resilience. We can prepare ourselves how to face this onslaught. So suddenly it attacks us, it makes us have some impact. We have a lot of wear and tear, and we don't know how to manage. We get exhausted and depleted at our resources. Then we have to prepare ourselves to manage this. So this is a disaster situation. It is very, very unprecedented and unheard of. Then another word is stress. You talked about post-traumatic stress disorder. Stress is a word which is being used in more in physics rather than in medicine and psychiatry. First time the word is used in physics. Anything under pressure is called stress. For example, I meet with a lot of events in my life. That is called life. See, I interact, I overcome, I cope, sometimes I succumb to a particular stimulus. So any type of things, it becomes, you would have to manage, cope, and adjust or adapt and evolve yourself to the betterment of the species. This is what the basis of struggle for existence and survival for the fittest. When it becomes stress, anything you would have to manage with a time slot, it becomes a stress. For example, if you are asked to do a particular task with a particular specified time, then you are under pressure. All pressures are not pathological, not detrimental. Pressure is very much necessary, and because of the experience of managing these type of situations, you become more experienced, more knowledgeable, and more mature. See, that's what I used to tell my students. When you meet with difficult cases, you become richer by knowledge. If you are lucky, you become richer by money also. So don't get worried about meeting difficult situations. When it becomes difficult, if the particular stimulus is beyond my ability, beyond my capacity, if I am not prepared, it occurs suddenly, then it becomes a pressure to cope with it. So we would have to prepare ourselves to meet with all these stresses. So everybody is under stress. Then when it becomes pathological, for example, because of this stress, my performance get impaired. Because of this stress, the wear and tear is too much and all my resources are depleted and impairs my functioning and impairs my performance and questions my survival, then it becomes a pathological stress. That has to be attended by specialists. So you would have to understand that stress is healthy, normal. Sometimes it can become pathological. So you can equip yourself to meet the demands. Now you know what is the problem you are facing. You know where is the problem. Now what type of problem is there? Then another important reason about stress is when you are facing a situation which is uncertain and insecure. See, that is what even Dr. Lakshmi has told. When you have a sense of security, there is no problem at all. When you have a sense of certainty, I think you can prepare and equip yourself. But in a sense of insecurity and uncertainty, I think you are at loss. So you would have to understand the whole situations and equip yourselves. Then comes another two words, mind and mental health. See, we are all dealing with our mind. See, physical health, everybody is very much conscious about physical health, and the society has become physically healthy. That is the reason why you see the death rate as well as the affective rate in India is very much lower when compared to other countries. So what happens is the physical health is very important. Physical health has got certain parameters and you have certain data on that. And anytime you know about your BMI or blood sugar, BP, you are able to make it or bring it within the normal limit. But mental health is a very important one. So once you are physically healthy, you add years to life. You become, longevity becomes more. But once you add mental health, then it adds life to years. That is the thing very important. The quality of life is determined based on your mental health. So you would have to deal with your mind. You would have to have control with your mind. You would have to know what are the components of the mind and how to control these things. So everybody want to keep them healthy. They know very well about the physical health promotion, but mental health promotion is a problem. In these type of situations, everybody's mental health has to be promoted as well as preserved. Otherwise, it will lead to a lot of adversities. That is, see, for example, when the society's mental health is measured by the deliberate self-harms, suicides, attempted suicides, social adversities. Once you are mentally healthy, you know the characteristic of mental health and you promote all those things, it will be very, very easy for you to manage all these type of situations. So with this basic knowledge, for example, my thought must be under control. My mood must be under control. I know what is my thought. What is my problem with the thought? Because of my mood, because of my thought, because of my intellect, I should not suffer. Many people suffer. See, for example, what is the anxiety? I have a thought, I have a mood, which makes me to suffer. It is a minor form of illnesses. See, that's it. Once your mental health is questioned and disturbed, you are aware that something is wrong. You are aware that something is happening within you, but you don't know how to manage those things. Just like physical health, ask for help. See, that is what Sneha is doing. See, when you are in trouble, when you have some number of confusions you want to question, talk to somebody. That part is now being very much disturbed. See, for example, now the stress means it is not a bigger stress. These are all called micro stresses. As you call it as macro and micro, for example, feel like talking to my father, feel like hugging my children, feel like mixing with my friends, feel like spending some time. Now that is being questioned, that is being curtailed. So what happens is a lot of micro stresses are being influenced. In the other way around, if somebody phones up and talks that they are suffering like this, that becomes an impact on me. That is also a micro stress. When they become dependent on you, you take the slot, you take the pressure, you take the burden. You don't know how to solve it. So these type of problems are happening. So what happens is this COVID situation has created, that is physical distance, created the word called social distance. So humankind is innately social. You have an innate drive to relate with people. Now that is being asked. See, we have different type of issues now coming up with all those things. So old age people are high risk people. That is the being propagated. Most of the people who are old age has to be physically isolated. But many times what happened in the society, already they have some issues like that. Once you try to isolate, then becomes the stigma. For example, you have a disease, you have to be isolated, you have to be stigmatized. So isolation and stigmatization has to be clearly understood. So these type of words you understand. See, humankind is necessary for socialization. It urges for socialization. I feel comfortable. See, that is what you are called a socialized animal. Socialize yourself. You have a lot of social responsibility for the betterment of the society. For example, I isolate myself physically or distance, keep a distance physically in order to protect the society. Then it becomes an altruism. So these type of things are happening with this. So what happens is you would have to improve the mental health of the society. The mental health awareness has to be brought into them, and you would have to counsel them, and you would have to make them aware that you can manage yourself. So increase that potential to cope with these type of stresses. So all these words has to be properly understood. Then the management of any type of crisis, any type of disorder, when it happens in the minor form, you call it as crisis and crisis intervention, which is very, very simple. When it becomes a major form, then it becomes a disaster, and disaster has to be managed in multiple ways. We have different types of impact of this COVID. One is quarantine. Quarantine can be person being quarantined also in problem, and persons who is being quarantined from his near ones also is a problem. Then it comes old age people. Then it comes already psychiatrically ill population, new occurrence of anxiety. Then already psychiatric ill people or physically comorbid people, the amount of fear and anxiety they have, all these things mounts, they need counseling. Now I think we would have to thank the government, which has allowed us to do the telepsychiatry or telemedicine, so that many people, see, for example, you take my age, I am asked not to go to the consulting room. I am not encouraged by my family to go do the consultation. But people are wanting to talk to us. All the psychiatrists are on the line continuously nowadays. So the people is now able to counsel them, this type of webinars, these type of educative things. So increase the quality of mental health, increase the promotion of the mental health services. Automatically, the people can learn and cope with any type of stresses. So the disaster management, promotion of mental health. PTSD, promotion of mental health, as well as the other type of things, it promotion of mental health. In these type of things, mainly the younger population as well as the older population are very much disturbed. Those areas need a special attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tirunavakar sir. It was wonderful listening to you, and your emphasis on stress, on the real meaning of stress and how it can be beneficial and how we can turn it into an advantage instead of it becoming a pathological issue for us. Thank you very much, Dr. Tirunavakar sir. Our next speaker for the day is Subhashini Gopal. She's a psychologist working with the Schizophrenia Research Foundation, SCARF, an NGO. She's been at this job for the last 15 years. She also coordinates the one-year diploma course in mental health care and counseling at SCARF and holds the position as member secretary of the SCARF Institutional Ethics Committee. Practicing part-time psychologist at Sundaram Medical Foundation, a multi-speciality hospital in Ananagar. She's currently pursuing a PhD and looking at expertise in providing physiotherapies and psychosocial interventions for persons with serious mental illness. Apart from her regular clinical work, she's been actively involved in research, teaching, spreading awareness about mental health to various groups like students, teachers, and the general public. She's involved in training volunteers and various self-help groups on mental health, mental illness, and on basic counseling skills to identify mental health issues, to make referrals, and also deliver barefoot counseling at the community level. She's published various research articles in national and international journals, co-authored chapters with regard to serious mental illness in a few psychiatry textbooks. So we welcome Ms. Subhashini to speak to our audience, and she'll speak on the effect of COVID on adolescents and the youth. Ms. Subhashini, please.
Yeah, thank you, Ramya, for that introduction. Yeah, good evening to all of you. Today I'm here to talk about the psychological impact of COVID pandemic on children and youth. With the enough introduction about the stress this pandemic situation has placed on all of us by the other eminent speakers, I directly go on to the focus of my session, which is on children and youth. Yeah, the one important thing is like this is a public health emergency where all of us are being affected. Our psychological well-being is being affected because of this situation. And there is so much of fear and anxiety with regard to the infection itself. And the other fear and anxiety is related to the lockdown situation, because all of us are finding it very difficult to adapt to the new normal life. Because this, as Dr. Lakshmi has rightly pointed out, this little virus has taken a toll on our entire life. And it has changed our life situation. We are not able to do our routines as before. So this is creating so much of anxieties and worries, and emotionally it is making us become very weak. So with regard to the children, the first main important thing which I like to point out here is about their development. So children, the brain development takes place with so many based on the environment where they are learning. Okay, the children learn from the peers, the children learn from their teachers. So they learn as in the environment where they are put in. So because of which they are emotionally and socially they develop. But now there is a restriction to all this. The children are not allowed to go out and play freely. They are not allowed to the classroom environment. They are stuck at home, and the parents have the huge responsibility to nurture them by all means. The parents have to take the role of a teacher. The parents have to take the role of a peer and support them in their learning process. So this creates so much of impact on their social and emotional development. The other important thing is so the other thing is about so the children are not lack their nurturing, stimulating and social environment where their learning opportunities are restricted and they are stuck in front of a gadget and they have to learn through the mission. Okay, the human connectedness which they would experience in a classroom where they will be able to relate to their peers, where they will be able to relate to their teachers and interact with them and learn, which is very, very limited now. So this has a huge impact on their development. The other important thing about the current situation is the e-learning with regard to the children. Now this is, as Dr. Tirunavakarasu and Dr. Lakshmi has pointed out, this is a sudden change in our life. We have not been prepared for this transition. So I understand the virtual learning and the remote learning is something way forward about the technological advancement. As a country, we will be looking forward for that as a society. But the transition is so sudden, none of us has been prepared for this transition. Children, parents, teacher, everybody is finding this transition more stressful. So the reality is like the children is the e-learning environment, the remote learning is not encouraging to the children, or it is not sustaining their attention enough. So they feel bored and frustrated sitting in front of the system for long hours. The other important thing is like you'd have seen children learning in a group. And in a school environment, in a classroom environment, they compete with each other. They sit and do homework together. They learn together as a group. But now the learning process is totally has become alienated. They are just stuck to the gadgets and they are trying to understand. They are trying to, in spite of so many distractions, they are trying to focus their attention, which is making them even more very distressed about the total learning process. The other important aspect with regard to the remote learning is the question of accessibility. not all the children have the privilege or are able to afford to this kind of a virtual platform. So what happens is, it's not only causing a lot of distress among the children, but also to the parents. The parents starts feeling guilty that they are not able to afford a smartphone to their children, or they're not able to afford a laptop to their children. When the children also starts comparing themselves to their neighborhood children or their peers who are able to use these kind of virtual platforms. So this causes, this makes them feel very insecure, and this makes them feel emotionally weak also. So there is so much of need that maybe as a society we need to work on this, filling this gap, and the education has to reach all of them uh, without any kind of an hindrance like this. Other impacts with regard to the situation is about, there are a lot of children who started to become fear and anxious about getting the virus. Like they were questioning themselves, what if I get affected? Because they are seeing so much of news and so much of information from the social media that children, whoever is affected, will be isolated, they will be quarantined, so they'll be taken away from their home. So all this is creating so much of anxiety in them. And the other thing is about, now the lockdown is slowly getting released, parents have started to get back to their work. So they are more worried about their safety of their parents. What if my mom and dad are getting exposed to the outside world? Now, what will happen if they get the virus? So that is another kind of stress which they are going through, and they are not able to express or talk about this to anyone because they are anxious, and there is no one available immediately also, and they start assuming their own stories in their mind. The other thing is about parents who's having a lot of limitation in making the children engage throughout the day, because they have their home responsibilities, they have their official responsibilities. So it is very difficult on their part to keep the children engaged. So what is the easiest way is, they resort to the gadgets. They leave the children unsupervised with mobile phones or laptops, so that the children see a lot of cartoons on the phone, or they listen to a lot of other kind of activities in the mobile. So this is again a very serious issue, where when they are left unsupervised, the children are more curious to know so many things. So when there is something else popping up, when they are watching the cartoon, they are curious to know what those sites are. So without unknowingly, they get into all these kind of things, which is again might lead to a lot of cyberbullying and other things. So definitely parents has to have a check on what the kids are watching and what the kids are engaging in. And also excessive screen time is totally not advisable for kids under 3 years or 5 years. It is only like 1 hour or 1.5 hours they are supposed to be watching all these things. So more than that will be causing harm to their physical health, causing a lot of strain in their eyes. So definitely there should be some kind of alternatives parents has to explore and engage their children. Other thing is about, when Dr. Lakshmi has spoken about the domestic violence, which is constantly increasing now during this lockdown, children are witnessing these kind of conflicts at home. This is making them become very insecure and emotionally weak. They feel that when we're constantly seeing the parents fighting and there is so much of violence at home, so this is making them feel emotionally weak. So keeping all this in mind, how the children can be helped, how can we protect them during this crisis situation? One thing, again, the responsibility lies on the parents. Like parents themselves as an adult should learn to cope with their stress. When the children see the parents getting worried and anxious about the current situation, automatically it is going to get carried over to the children also. So as an adult, the parents should learn to cope with their anxiety and spend enough time, adequate time in open conversation with the children, explaining them the facts. Younger children can be explained about the current scenario based on some story through a play activity. Okay, during bedtime, stories can be said to the children involving animal characters, explaining about the COVID virus, explaining about the precautions, why is it necessary and important for the kids to go follow all these kind of precautions, can be said in a very, very light tone, not using a very serious tone, because that might scare the children. The other thing is like to ensure digital hygiene, to ensure that the children are spending only limited time with the social media or the online games. You can involve the children in various other manual activities, like you can sit with them, make them to draw or color, some kind of other activities where the child get distracted from this gadgets. And I understand there is so much of limitations to go out and play, but whatever is possible within their compound or within their apartment campus or in the terrace, the children can be encouraged to do some kind of a physical activity. They can do cycling or whatever it is, maintaining social distancing and maintaining and ensuring all safety precautions. The other thing is, like, if the parents find the children that they are getting really worked up because of the situation, they are feeling so frustrated, they are anxious all the time, it is affecting their day-to-day routines, they are not able to sleep. We have a helpline. We get calls from parents saying that the child is not eating properly, the child is not sleeping properly. Definitely it is important that they have to seek professional help, talk to some telecounseling services, because there are so many services available, and engage the child to talk to some kind of a mental health professional, and it will be definitely helpful to the child and the parent. And with regard to the youth, there is a lot of research now happening with understanding about the impact on youth. There is one survey which has been done on the Office of National Statistics, which shows that on the age group, people in the age group of 16 to 24 feel lonely during this lockdown. And it is like twice as likely compared to the other older adults. So what is making them anxious? What kind of an issue is making them anxious? Again, as I told before, it is the social and physical distancing. So this is the age where youth will spend a lot of time with peers, spend a lot of time outside. The time spent with the family is very, very minimal. And there is uncertainty about the current scenario. When is the lockdown released? When can I go out freely? When can I eat out? These kind of questions are there, which the youth doesn't have an answer now. And uncertainty about the future, as Dr. Lakshmi said, there are college students who are not able to decide about their future. They have applied abroad, they wanted to take up the admission, but now they are clueless about it. Now whether to go or decline the admission, they are not too sure. So now they don't have a plan B at all. They have all planned about one particular thing. Now everything has changed. So this is creating so much of anxiety and uncertainty in them. And distraction, online learning, they are not used to this home environment. There is so much of distraction sitting at home and learning. So this is, and the other thing is lack of physical activity, with, like as I told about the children, even youth, we are getting so many calls from saying that they are not able to access the gym. They are used to the workout. They are very conscious about their health. Now they are not able to spend adequate time on all these kind of workouts. This is causing so much of stress in them. So what can be done is, like, because of this over involvement with electronic and gadgets, they have sleep irregularities, they eat at erratic times. This causes a lot of anxiety and interpersonal issues with the family members. So what can the youth do to protect their mental health is, there are 6 steps. The first thing is about being aware of their emotions. And the second thing is to normalize what they are going through. Yes, everybody in this world is going through this current situation, which is creating so much of anxiety. I'm not the only person. And this is, in this situation, to have this kind of an emotion is. So normalizing is, why is it normalizing so important is, normalizing would allow them to look at the problem situation in a proactive manner. Otherwise, if they are going to brood over the anxiety, brood over whatever is happening, it is going to be overwhelming to them, and it is going to increase their worries. So they will not be able to see the problem proactively. The next thing is about creating distraction. Yes, this particular thing is worrying me a lot. How can I distract from this situation? How can I divert my attention to other productive things? Having use this opportunity, look at this lockdown as an opportunity to learn various skills, or involve in the family time, spend time with the family members, understand each other, help and support each other. And there are so many new ways with technological advancement to connect with friends. It's only physical distancing, not social distancing. We can use the technology to connect with people, talk to them, share their concerns with them. So the other thing is having this as a me time. So long we have been running with at school, or having a lot of assignments at college. We have a hectic schedule, but now we have the time to focus on us. So we can see this as an opportunity that we have got to reflect on us, like what we wanted to do, pursue some hobbies, learn some new skills. So these kind of things can happen during this particular time. And other thing is like look at the neighborhood. There are so many people in the neighborhood who is in need of help. There might be elderly people who doesn't have anybody to take care of them. Maybe you can talk to them, spend some time with them, maintaining the social distance. Okay, these kind of things will definitely help the youths to manage their mental health. So this is something about the coping with stress, which WHO has come up, this poster. So with this, I end. And there is a helpline which SCARF provides where anybody can reach when there is a need. So even when the youth faces a lot of stressors and they are not able to handle, definitely, and they can call and talk to mental health professionals. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Subhashini. That was a lovely presentation. I think there are a lot of lessons in this especially for students and parents, apart from the youth themselves, on how they can protect themselves during the COVID times. Thank you, panelists, for this very enlightening session. All of you have made different points, and I think it is now time for questions. Some of the questions have already been answered individually. I think our experts have answered them online, but some of them might need to be asked again in the interests of giving our students, our audience, the information. There have been a lot of questions on the mask, on wearing a mask itself. Dr. Ravikumar Arunachalam, maybe you would like to take, I will ask a few questions and maybe you can answer them. One is wearing a mask, who does it help? What is the right kind of mask to wear? And since you've said the virus is really small, can it even go into our cloth masks as well? Doctor?
Yeah, this is a very nice question, because wearing a mask is going to be almost compulsory in the next year or so, minimum. And the mask is supposed to give you a physical protection, number one. It protects the individual from droplet infection coming from another person who's carrying the virus. So the triple layer mask, which is the commonest one which we use, especially it is used in operating theaters also earlier on. It has got three layers. It's got an outer layer which is plastic coated, a middle layer which got an absorbent material, and an inner layer which has got a soft cloth material. So it's comfortable when you place it on your nose and your mouth, and enables you to breathe also. So there is a popular misconception that you wear a mask, you can't breathe properly. It's not so. There is a slight period of adjustment, so you have to get adjusted to it, but you should be able to breathe easily. Secondly, when we speak, when we exhale, always some droplets of our saliva and other thing, mucus, travels outwards, especially when you're speaking loud and if you're closer to the person. These also are transmitted to the person next to you. Particularly the coronavirus is extremely virulent and strong. It can stay alive for a longer period, even up to 8 to 10 days. So that is why mask wearing is important. Now the dispute between a cloth mask and a triple layer mask. Cloth mask does not give you the features which I already told you. Supposing somebody coughs or somebody speaks loud or sneezes, the cloth mask will absorb that mucus which comes out and can be transmitted to the other person. So that protection is not there as you expect the triple layer mask. Now, another popular mask is the N95 mask, which everybody keeps asking about. N95 mask has got 5 layers. It is a respiratory mask. If you see, it's got a bit of something like a duck's beak. So you're actually breathing in a small pocket of air. That is giving you a little more comfort in terms of breathing. At the same time, because it's 5 layers, its protection is higher. But it is definitely more expensive and it is not very comfortable to wear that and do certain activities. So depending on your risk level, the average person somebody who is going out for shopping or somebody who is actually going to office, who is not going to be in close contact with others, who maintain the physical distancing, a triple layer mask would be ideal. And it has to be changed every day. Generally 6 to 8 hours maximum you should wear it. And N95 mask, which is more expensive, can be used by people who are exposed to patients who are already got infection or those working in a COVID ward or the casualty or in the ICUs, where the chances of you can contract an infection, which usually goes through the nose, mouth, and eyes, is much more. So we can have the N95 there. Besides this, any protection is good enough, but the level of protection is different in different masks. Now, there are very fashionable looking masks. As long as they meet these requirements, it is safe. But just for the sake of the style, if they're wearing a mask without these features, it's not going to be protective. So it's protective to the individual and prevents infection from the individual going out to the next person also. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. There is a question on suicide. So probably Dr. Lakshmi, is suicide followed by depression? I guess what the student wants to ask is depression a cause of suicide at this point?
Yes, depression is a cause of suicide because, you have to feel depressed. But as depressive illness, yes, because about 30-40% of people who die by suicide in our country have a depressive illness. But majority of what we have found in studies is that majority of people die by suicide in their very first episode of depression, and even when they have a mild to moderate depression. So it becomes very difficult to identify and treat. So under-reporting, under-recognizing treatment, and under-treatment of depression is a major killer as far as I'm concerned. So we have to have awareness about depression as a disorder. We have to have adequate treatment for that. And many a time, the people who are depressed are not recognized as having depression by other people. They think, oh, it is laziness. She can talk about everything else and he can do everything else. Why can't he come to work, or why can't she cook? So it is somehow depression. Because depression is something which we all go through as a mood. We feel depressed when we fight with our friends, or we feel depressed when something which we are looking forward to doesn't happen. But so when we say depression as a disorder, people are not able to equate that as a severe disorder, as a disorder which can kill. In fact, one of my clients said, you have to change the word. Depression is a very, very tepid word for the terrible agony I'm going through. So depression as a disorder is about 40% of suicides are due to depression. In developed countries, it is much more. But in our countries, a lot of family situation, family problems is one of the most important reasons for suicide in our country. So it is not that suicide is followed by depression, but depression is followed by suicide. It's the other way around.
Right. Thank you so much. Dr. Tirunavkar sir, maybe this question would be right up your alley. I have been fired from my job and I'm unable to get a new job thanks to the COVID situation. I have been doing some gymming and yoga at home, but it is a very stressful situation. How to cope with this?
Yeah. See, for example, coping means you would have to find some resource. Nowadays, the jobs are become more uncertain. Any type of job has just become uncertain. This reality we must understand. We must be always, we feel secure and we must prepare for the worst. Then what happens is, this is only an event. For example, I have lost a job. I have been fired from a job, or I have been asked to wait for a job. This is only an event. This is not the end of it, or this is not the final. So what happens is you would have to look for other ways of knowing things. See, the purpose of life is to be useful to others. One of the method of being useful to others is in a job. By job, what I do, I become useful to my employer. I become useful to my clients. Because of that, they pay some as a gratification. The gratification may be money or other things. So what happens is we would have to plan for the life as well as the future. The lifestyle modification is very important at this stage. What is the lifestyle modification means? It is not merely exercise, diet, and other things. In life, there are two things which are important or which are happening. What is happening is one is need, another one is wants. See, we have certain needs to survive in this world. We have certain needs to be fulfilled to live in this world. Because of that, we would have to identify our needs. Another one is wants. Wants means increase the pleasure of living. See, for example, increased pleasure of living makes the life more interesting. It becomes very spicy. So what happens is you have to identify what are your needs. For example, if all of us live for only needs, I think our needs are very much limited. I think we can meet with all our needs. The demand is very, very minimal. There won't be any scarcity at all. But we look for wants. So over a period of decades, what happened is people were identifying wants as needs. For example, I want an Apple iPhone. Is a want. I want a phone is a need, but I want a smartphone is a want. Like that, people have now started all identifying wants as needs. So now this person has to identify the needs first, the needs of himself, his of his near one, dear ones, then there won't be any anxiety or there won't any depletion of the resources. Then he must wait for that. So living only for needs is boredom. Really, I accept that. Then you look for healthy wants. So you identify healthy wants and make use of that. The life will be more interesting. And this is only a event. This is only a temporary transient situation. Definitely there is going to be a lot of need. For example, now as this COVID has fired many people, but in the health sector, there is a lot of need. You might have seen the TV and newspapers also. More doctors are wanted, more health professionals wanted, more lab technicians are wanted, more social workers are wanted. So more type of these type of things. So the needs are going to be different things. Equip yourself, promote your mental health, relate well, do your things which is useful to yourself as well as others. You feel very much gratified and satisfied in your life.
Thank you, Doctor. Um, we have a lot of questions on how to recognize early symptoms. A number of participants have asked this question. And number of symptoms. How do you recognize early the symptoms of depression and stress among children and the aged? So, Dr. Tirunavakar sir and maybe Ms. Gopal can answer this as well.
Yeah. See, one thing is, for example, in psychiatry, the phenomenology is very, very important. See, for example, I feel depressed is normal. I feel anxious is normal. I feel suspicious is normal. I feel worried is normal. It is with stimulus, with reason. What happens is there must be a reason to feel anxious. There must be a reason to feel suspicious. There must be a reason to or a stimulus to feel depressed. Then what happens is once the stimulus is removed, automatically you revert back. So that is the normal reaction. For example, I suffer from depression. That means because of this anxiety, because of this suspicion, because of the hostility, Because of the depression or because of the happiness, I suffer myself. It impairs my functioning. I'm not able to overcome. That is the reason why in diagnosis, what happens, we say that whether it has interfere your day-to-day activities, even if it is interferes, whether it is interfering consistently for a week or 10 days. So these type of things, then automatically these symptoms can impair your biological symptoms like sleep, appetite, energy. So always mood is associated with energy. Because of the lack of energy, I feel ordinary things look enormous to me. When these things are there, definitely you must consult. For example, we say that it is a consult, the consultation means it is not treatment or identifying or labeling. The consult must be there whether this particular difficulty has to be given importance or not. See, for example, like Lakshmi was telling, I feel depressed. The depression can cause, see, any type of mental health issues or mental illnesses or mental instabilities, if not properly attended and not completely attended, that can lead to loss of life. It is, I had not previously thought it was a morbidity producing illness. Now it is a mortality producing illness. So very easy to identify. Many times we identify, I'm not all right as I was. I have faced much more stressful situation in my life, but I have revert back within a week or 10 days. But still I am impaired. My sleep is disturbed. My appetite is disturbed. I become procrastination. These things, then definitely you must consult whether to give importance or not. Consulting is different from getting treatment altogether.
Thank you.
Uh,
Ms. Gopal, please.
Yeah. So the other thing is about, yeah, as parents, like they have seen the children, their normal behaviors in children, they observe day in and out, day out. So when they see there is some kind of a behavioral change in the child, or the child is trying to be more clingy with the parent, not allowing the parent to move here and there and there, and there is problem with sleep and appetite, as Dr. Tirunavakar has slightly pointed out. And that's what I said. The stress can bring a lot of change emotionally and behaviorally, cognitively. So when they are seeing these kind of changes in the children, I think that's a warning sign for them, and they need to sit and spend time adequately with the child to understand what exactly is making them to behave in such a way, and then seek professionals help. That is more important. So sometimes with a mild issues, with parents sitting next to them and giving them kind of a moral support and reassuring them can bring them back to a normalcy. But if the parents feel that it is not helping the child, then definitely they need to seek help with professionals. So the change from their normal behaviors to what is happening now, when there is change from their usual behaviors, if the parents are able to observe, definitely it is a concern for them.
If I may add,
Yes.
Dr. Tunakar spoke about the elderly, and Subhashini talked about the children. Now, when you come to adolescence, the expression of depression becomes a little different. Okay, most often adolescents express depression with anger bursts, outbursts, withdrawal, getting into temper tantrums, throwing things, walking out, cutting their friends' relationships suddenly, listening to very metal music, listening to very, what shall I say, depressogenic music, and not caring about their dress and not caring about how they look. These are all the symptoms which an adolescent, or giving away things which they normally have. If they like a guitar, or they like their music album or a cassette, they will give it off to other people and, saying, what is the point in this and all that. So in adolescence, it is very difficult because, and the mood will be fluctuating also. We cannot say they are depressed, because once they'll be like this and suddenly they will be a little happy. And then you think, okay, this is not really depression, and then they go back quickly. So fluctuating moods is also very common in adolescence.
Thank you. Ms. Gopal, there are two questions for you actually. This is about handling teens. So what kind of activities can parents use to engage with teens? Because they say that this is the age that they want to be left alone and not have the parents interfere all the time. The second question is, a father or a mother says, I work with the government and I'm expected to go to office every day. My daughter, who is 13, is stressed that I am going out. How do I deal with her?
Okay. So let me answer the second question first about the government employee who has to go to work every day. So definitely this child who's experiencing this is going to feel anxious because the mother is exposed to the outside world. So one thing, as I told before in my talk, is like to reassure the child that the mother is taking all necessary precautions, and she maintains social distance, she wears all the mask at time. So spend time with the child to explain that how important it is for her to go to work, because there is no option of work from home available for her kind of a work, and hence there's a need that she has to go. And she ensure that she's maintaining all kind of precautions to safeguard herself, and to reassure the child that she need not worry about it. And as soon as the mother comes home, also to make sure to tell the child that she is disinfecting, and she's doing all the other things, to taking a bath and make sure that she's safe. And all these kind of things discussing with the child would help the child to overcome the anxiety. That is one thing. The second thing is about the first question about engaging teens. Yeah, that's a very valid question. It is very difficult for the parents to engage the teens some kind of an activity. And so that's the thing that I told before, like, see this opportunity as a time together with the family. So it is not going to happen all of a sudden to make the teen come out of the room. If the teen has always been practiced in that way, during this lockdown situation, it is not going to happen overnight to bring the child out of the room. So it is slowly the parents should involve in some kind of a conversation, maybe go and sit with the teen in the room, and just to have a casual talk with the child, understanding what is she doing, what he or she is doing, what kind of activities she's engaging with the laptop or the mobile phone, just to understand about the friends. So spend a very little time, not too much of push from their end. It should not be like nagging the child. It should not be like going and asking, enna pandra, not these kind of questions. Okay, in a very friendly way, this parents can, either of the parents can engage the teen in some kind of an activity, some kind of a conversation with them. And the second thing is about giving the teen some responsibility. Now, what the issue is, like, most of the parents feel that not the teens may not be involved in household work. Even their teens come for asking for some work, they said, like, no need, you will mess it up, you need not do anything, let me take care of it on my own. So some kind of a household responsibility has to be given to the teen, so they also feel that they have been valued, they have some responsibility at home. Parents are looking forward for something. Okay, you make tea, or you make something, some nice dish for me. Some giving them some responsibility will help the teen to engage in some kind of an interaction with the family members. So these are all some small steps they can take, but it is not going to bring a drastic change overnight. It is a process. It will take some time.
Right. Dr. Ravikumar Arunachalam, just wanted to check if you would like to take this question. What could be the new career options other than the regular two, which I presume is medicine and engineering, for science students after COVID? It's couched in the COVID context.
Anything in the biological field, medical and allied health sciences will be good, because what has been happening in the world just before COVID hit us, lifestyle diseases have been increasing. The lifespan of human beings is increasing. So you find that there's a lot of demand for people who care for the older generation, who care for people with chronic diseases such as hypertension, diabetes, neurological diseases, etc. And that is not only taking medicines and consulting a doctor. They need the help of, for example, physiotherapists. They need help of the nursing profession, things like that. So all these opportunities are already there. That is why there is a real surge in the demand for allied health sciences nowadays. The second and other end of the spectrum, we have children unfortunately born with certain disabilities. It could be physical, it could be psychological, it could be also related to their cognitive functions, including my field of ear, nose, throat. There are almost 1% of our population is having hearing impairment. And children form a large percentage of this. For them to get them the hearing and then related to development of speech and language, it requires a specialist to nurture that child along with the help of the parents. And that branch of medical science is audiology, speech, language pathology, has evolved very, very well in the last couple of decades. And there's a huge demand for it all over the world. So this is another one. Now, along with the chronic diseases, developed a lot of procedures and a lot of treatment protocols. For example, in kidney disease, dialysis is one thing which has happened. So a lot of paramedical personnel who are involved in dialysis, treating patients with dialysis, their demand went up. So there is a huge, huge volume of opportunities available. It doesn't have to translate into only those which give you more money. It could be, it's an industry which is a caring industry. It is supposed to improve the lifestyle of the person whom you are addressing or treating. So a bit of service orientation is required at the expense of their own comfort. So those who have that sort of mindset, and as Dr. Tilnak also mentioned some time ago, if you have that mentality, it's not only the money, money will come later on. So the focus of a person who is aspiring to be joining a medical or a paramedical profession should be to find satisfaction, chase your dream, what you want to be, and then look at the other benefits. Benefits will come, but they'll come in their own time. But the mental health of the individual always is dependent on the passion for the particular work he is doing and how much satisfaction it will give him. The choice is wide, and we have in all the universities career counselors. They'll be able to help them out. I hope I answered some of the aspects of the question.
Thank you, Doctor. There's a question for Dr. Lakshmi. A person who does not show any symptoms, depression or anything else, attempts suicide. How do we recognize and help such people?
Actually, if you look at it, suicide is almost always never a surprise. Or even an attempt is almost always never a surprise. The research has shown that 80% of people who either die by suicide or attempt suicide have told somebody that they don't feel like living, they want to die, they feel life is worthless, or they are a burden, and or I would die and show, prove my loyalty or love or whatever it is. So in fact, it is we who are shall I say, we don't hear it because we don't know how to deal with it. Okay, we don't know how to deal if somebody comes and one of your friends comes and says, "I'm feeling suicidal." We don't know how to deal with it, so we prefer not to listen. So there are enough hints which people say, which is why we say suicide or attempted suicide is a cry for help. It's a form of communication saying, "I don't know how to cope. Please help me. That's why I'm doing this. All right, that's why I'm thinking this." But most often we don't listen. We don't, and most often if somebody says like this, I'm feeling low, I'm feeling depressed, you would say, look at people who are less than you, who have less than you, be happy. Or you maximum, if you are very empathetic, you would say, take a break, man, go somewhere, have, just enjoy yourself for a month and come back and everything will go away. But the fact is, now we don't have, in spite of all these modern technology means of communication, people are more lonely. That is what research has shown. Though we are able to connect with, communicate with people more effectively, our connections with people have weakened. We have become more lonely, and this loneliness is what drives majority of the people to suicide. So majority of the time people do say, mainly because the fact of suicide itself is an ambivalent phenomenon. The wish to live and the wish to die is like a seesaw battle for them. If you talk to them, majority of them would say it's not that I really want to die, but I just can't go on living like this. So it is the ambivalence which they express. And if you are able to listen, understand, and care for another human being, a lot of suicides can be prevented. So, as I said, mostly suicide is almost always never a surprise. Maybe the person has not spoken to you, but may have spoken to somebody else. Because many of the time, when you have suicidal ideas, you prefer not to talk to your close people because you don't know how they are going to react or what kind of help they have. So then usually they speak to somebody else.
Thank you, Doctor, for that. So we have quite a few questions on from students, I'm guessing, on anxiety and fear. And so I think it's our duty to answer some of them at least. Anxiety and fear of entrance exams and results. How do you prevent yourself from distractions while studying? And okay, this is another question, but we can also talk about how do you prevent stress during this COVID environment as a student? Dr. Tirunavkar, sir, would you like to go? Then maybe Ms. Gopal can chime in as well.
See, now what happens is this lack of concentration is a very important complaint people tell nowadays. I am not able to concentrate. When I am studying, I am not able to concentrate well as I was concentrating previously. This is one important thing. I am being distracted by so many other type of thoughts. See, one thing we would have to know is while I am studying, what for I am studying, many people do not have an idea. See, for example, even one question, somebody told that in this situation, what type of course I have to take. See, one thing is learning or studying means you learn for what? To enrich your knowledge, or you learn for developing a skill, or you want to learn for while away the time, or you want to study for the sake of becoming center of excellence, or you just want to study as a leisure time activity. See, for example, playing tennis may be a profession for an individual. For another person, it may be a leisure time activity. The same way, studying about human mind is a profession for myself as well as to Gopal. But studying about mind may be a leisure time activities. So any type of things, certain things you think is useless, but that also may be useful at some time in our lifetime. So when you are learning things, concentrating on all those things, you would have to know very well. That is what the basis of mental health. What for I am doing this? Am I aware of what I am doing? What for I am doing? When you have that target, when you have that aim, if that fulfills, that become a more satisfying experience. That's what you call it as passion. I read this only for the sake of exam. I read this or acquire this degree for the sake of employment. I read this to know the world. I need this to enrich my knowledge in religion. So like that, you have multiple things in this world. Anything can be useful or anything becomes useless. For example, you try one thing Afterwards, after trying that, if you think that it is not worth it, it is unnecessary, it is not possible by me, then you try further. That is called judgment. So once you know the capacity, when he knows the resources, you try that, then there won't be any type of stress. Another thing, anxiety means fear of something happening. See, I am anticipating something. See, anxiety is increased arousal state. I want to perform something better. Then definitely my anxiety level will become more because of increased arousal state. Any type of exam fear, all those things you tell, because you have to perform well. So that is the reason why your anxiety level comes. If you are well prepared, if you are totally not prepared, there is no anxiety at all. If you are deficiently prepared or you are prepared below your expectations, then you become anxious. So this is what's going to happen is called anxiety. Then what is depression? Something has already happened, I have lost, then I feel depressed cognitively. So something going to happen anticipatory, you develop anxiety. Then you know that this is my resource, this is my possibilities, capabilities, this is my goal. Fix the goal according to your ability, then there is no anxiety at all. Now here one word the students should know is, many times they say that success. Success means it is not competing. Success not something that I got to come first. Success means completing a task. I used to tell my students, you take this article and read completely once. That is a success. Then you try to read faster, try to understand faster. Like that, after some time only you can become like that. So once you keep reading something, I understand. For example, certain things I don't understand. I can't understand. That's what I tell my psychiatry students. Many people doesn't like psychology and psychiatry because of statistics, because of data. If you are not able to understand data, you cannot read that particular subject. So I am poor in that. Then you equip in that particular area. Once you equip, I think it becomes easy. Like that, understand yourself, improve your assessment, know aware, have insight into your abilities, then there is no anxiety, there is no depression. Depression and anxiety comes as a disease is different. There is no reason that I have to develop anxiety. There is no reason that I have to develop depression. Without any obvious reasons, I can develop depression and anxiety. Then that becomes an impulse, a disease or illness. Then it has to be treated properly.
Ms. Gopal?
Yeah.
Thank you,
So
Doctor.
one thing the students should be should understand when they face attention problems with regard to studies is, one, the level of their motivation. Okay, they might be interested in particular subject. Some subject might be boring, which is normal. So they need to understand whether they are motivated to learn, or they have their intrinsic drive to go sit and study. So the other thing is about the distraction. So they have to minimize the distraction in the environment. And what many children they do is, like, they tend to have some unrealistic goals. They sit with their book and they'll think that they have to finish some 15-20 pages or 2-3 chapters in a span of 2 hours or 3 hours, which is not realistic. So when they set these kind of goals, this is going to cause a lot of pressure in them. And what they do is, like, when they start with the first page, they tend to see how much is there. So this is going to create so much of anxiety in them, and this is going to stress them a lot and lose motivation to study further. So they have to set some kind of smart goals where they are very simple, very realistic and achievable. So setting goals, short-term goals, will definitely motivate them. And other thing is, like, each children have a different way of learning. Somebody will be a verbal learner. You would have seen some children just keeping quiet, sitting in front of the book. Parents will doubt whether they are studying or daydreaming. So, but they can read only like that. Some people will read loudly. Some people are visual learner. So they have to learn, keep the learning methods matching to their kind of strategies, which would work for them. So these kind of simple things, if they could incorporate, and taking frequent breaks. Need not pressurize them. When they are not able to pay attention, they need not force them to sit for continuously and study. Pressurizing them, this is again will be worse. So when they are able to pay attention for 20 minutes or half an hour, after that they can take a break for 5 minutes. Involve in something which is relaxing to them, then come back and sit for another 30 minutes. So taking some small breaks in between will definitely have an effect on improving their attention. So all these kind of things they can follow.
Thank you for that. Let's go to the other side of the spectrum. There are people who are asking, how can youth distract themselves from a bitter home environment? And there is a senior citizen who says, I'm 71, I find it difficult to pass my time. So, some answers for this.
Okay,
Yes,
I
Dr.
will jump in.
Go to this. Or yeah, sure. Go ahead.
See how the youth to distract themselves from a difficult home environment is a huge challenge, because before they used to get away from the home, spend time in school or college or friends, and so the home environment played a small part. As Subhashini was saying, in this age group, they have more, invested more emotionally and psychologically with friends and other groups and other things. So now, when those things are cut off and when they have to face a domestic situation where there is a constant battle between the father and mother, they feel extremely disappointed with their entire life. And they do not know how to cope with it because they can't get out from the home. Many students have complained this. They are not able to get out. And the result is many of them spend huge amount of time, apart from the online learning or whatever, huge amount of time on the screen. And they become vulnerable and expose themselves to predators. And this is something which we have seen. They are exposed to cyberbullying. They are exposed to people who encourage these youngsters to go into gaming and spend a lot of money. They take money and then it becomes a problem. So the important thing and like adults, we cannot tell these young people have a routine, because the youngsters don't want to have a routine. They feel routine is boring. They don't want to have a routine. So we have to think of how an adolescent can find something interesting and to do, where he connects with another person, but be in a safe environment. So what would be good for these in this kind of situation is to get into a group yoga or a group meditation or a group learning of language or something like that, so that he develops a group, at the same time is not exposed to gaming, excessive gaming or excessive. What we have also research has shown is during this lockdown period, the internet predators have increased by almost 30%. So many young people are caught in their grip. So it is important for the parents to understand this, and even if they have differences, to handle it not in the presence of the teen, or to resolve their differences, or to seek help for their differences and understand this. And they all also other thing is, many of these adolescents are much more tech savvy than the parents. So the parents think that they know what is happening, but they don't know. They have so many other identities with which they play with. So it is extremely important that we somehow encourage the youngsters to maybe use the online system for something which will be enhancing their skills, enhancing their potential, enhancing their connectedness.
Also, the 71-year-old gentleman who says he's finding it difficult to pass the time.
Absolutely. I mean, many elderly people, they have, it's a double whammy for them, because their social connections are not there, and they are also vulnerable. So they are not allowed to go out, and people who will come and help them, they are also barred. So they become very, very lonely. And how to handle the loneliness is the fact that even if you are 71, the fact is there may be some people around who are younger, and he might have some hobby or something which he can connect virtually, which may put good accuracy. It is not a great idea to have a group of old people because they all have the same issues. So it is good to have a mix of age groups, So he should get into the groups or chats or whatever it is, which has a mix of young, middle-aged, old-age people, so that he sees the variety. Because if you have all the old people group, then everybody complains about loneliness or their arthritis or their heart attack, and they become even more depressed. So what the person, see, loneliness is a state of mind, as Dr. Tirunakar would agree. You can be lonely even when you are amongst 100,000 people, okay? Or you need not feel lonely if you are sitting alone on a mountain top also. So it's our state of mind. So if in our mind we are connected with people, we will not be lonely.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Lakshmi. We have a couple of minutes left. So there is one fascinating question that I think I must ask, and maybe Dr. Ravi Kumar can take this. Accepting that online education is not a psychologically healthy source of acquiring knowledge, are there any other healthier alternatives to it during the pandemic? Maybe you'd like to take a minute on this, Dr. Ravi Kumar.
Yes, if I understood the question right, I think he's saying online education is going to be there. And in addition to that, is there any other methods of learning?
I think it means it's not very healthy in terms of promoting mental health. So are there alternatives to online education?
Yeah, actually, in the medical field, that includes allied health sciences, what we are prescribing is something called blended learning, where it's combining both online as well as a little bit of campus contact. Most of the practicals and even the clinical exposure for the students of allied health sciences given in hospitals. So that will bring them together. So a mix of both. How much is the mix? We are not sure. Most theory lectures, interactive sessions, everything will happen online. But certain discussions, practical demonstrations, clinicals, etc., will happen in the campus. So I think if they mix both and have a blended learning, that will be a better alternative. Will keep their mental status also quite normal. They won't feel lonely and alone in learning. The second thing which is happening in the technology world, I'm told, is going to be something called a virtual classroom. Virtual classrooms, along with AI-enabled devices, might bring people together in a virtual world. I don't know how the mind will react to it because I don't have the experience and I've not spoken to people with that. But that's another alternative which is being thought of. Time being, in the immediate future, online education is going to make inroads into traditional learning. And definitely, it's going to be part of the teaching methodology. Beyond this, a combination of a little bit of campus-related learning also should happen, especially in fields where it requires practical exposure and teamwork is required. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. I think that's a truism we'll all have to learn to live with and probably find strategies to cope with also. Thank you for all our experts, our panelists here, Dr. Ravi Kumar, Dr. Tirunakar sir, Dr. Lakshmi, Ms. Subhashini. Thank you so much for spending a couple of hours with us, more than a couple of hours, in fact. And we found this engagement, and I'm sure some of our participants did as well. We found this engagement absolutely enlightening. And I hope that you also had some amount of engagement during this 2-hour session. Thank you very much to all our panelists, and we loved having you here. Thank you so much.
I enjoyed being here. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
SRM Institute of Science and Technology, Engineering, Medical and Health Sciences, Management, Dental, Science and Humanities, Law, Agriculture Sciences, Hotel Management. Admissions open.